The atmosphere during BTS's Day 1 soundcheck in Toronto turned into one of the most emotional and widely discussed moments among ARMY after cameras clearly captured Jungkook's instinctive panic when Jimin nearly lost his balance, followed by a series of exchanged love gestures and silent glances from opposite ends of the stage that sent the entire stadium into a frenzy. Welcome to Jimin Gallery, the home for Park Jimin fans who want to discover all the latest news, interesting facts, and stories behind the world's spotlight on Jimin. Day 1 soundcheck in Toronto unfolded with an energetic atmosphere as the BTS members began greeting fans from stage. However, amid all the excitement, the cameras repeatedly turned their attention toward Jungkook, who appeared deeply focused on Jimin. Jungkook's gaze seemed to follow Jimin's every movement, as though making sure his fellow member remained comfortable and alright throughout the soundcheck. The moment became even more touching as Jimin moved from one side of the stage to the other. Jungkook could occasionally be seen glancing in his direction, and even showing subtle reactions whenever Jimin did something on stage. The simple behavior created a warm atmosphere, as Jungkook appeared to be doing more than simply watching Jimin perform. He seemed to genuinely show the kind of concern associated with someone always ready to look out for his fellow member. The cameraman capturing the moment then appeared to keep the focus on Jungkook. His expression looked calm and attentive, occasionally accompanied by a small smile whenever he looked at Jimin. The footage immediately became one of the moments ARMY paid the most attention to because it showed Jungkook's gentle and caring side toward Jimin without the need for many words. What made the atmosphere even sweeter was when Jimin finally noticed Jungkook's attention from across the stage. From one end of the stage, Jimin gave Jungkook a simple love gesture, and Jungkook returned it from the opposite side. The two seemed to be tossing love back and forth across the stage, creating a small interaction that felt incredibly meaningful to the fans watching. The camera then moved back and forth between the two of them. Every time Jimin sent a love gesture, Jungkook responded with a smile and a similar gesture, making the distance between them seem almost meaningless. Without lengthy dialogue or exaggerated actions, their simple communication was enough to make ARMY cheer and feel touched by the closeness between the two members on stage. ARMY's reaction immediately filled the soundcheck area with warm cheers. Many fans could be seen smiling and recording their screens while enjoying the interaction as one of the sweetest moments before the Toronto concert began. To them, Jungkook's attention toward Jimin felt incredibly sincere, while their exchange of love gestures from opposite ends of the stage became a simple reflection of the strong bond they had built over the years. Day 1 soundcheck in Toronto ultimately left behind a moment that was difficult to forget. Jungkook continuously watching Jimin responding to that attention with a smile, and the two of them sending love gestures to each other from a distance. The camera may have captured only a few seconds, but to ARMY, the moment felt far more meaningful, a warm glimpse of care, friendship, and togetherness that made the Toronto soundcheck even more special. Amid the increasingly lively atmosphere of Day 1 soundcheck in Toronto, the cameras once again turned toward Jungkook while the other members were busy greeting and talking with ARMY. Jungkook could be seen several times turning toward the side of the stage where Jimin was standing. His gaze seemed to instinctively search for Jimin among the many activities taking place on stage before he turned back toward ARMY with a calm expression. The simple moment touched fans because Jungkook appeared to always make sure Jimin remained within his line of sight. A short while later, the situation briefly changed when Jimin moved rather quickly toward another side of the stage. In one step, his movement appeared to become slightly unsteady before he quickly regained his balance. Jungkook's reaction immediately changed. The smile that had previously been on his face disappeared, and his body instinctively moved several steps toward Jimin, as though he was ready to make sure nothing more serious had happened. The camera, which happened to be pointed toward Jungkook, clearly captured the change in his expression. Jungkook looked serious for several seconds, keeping his eyes fixed on Jimin until he was certain that his fellow member had regained his balance. After seeing Jimin smile and continue his activities as usual, Jungkook finally appeared slightly relieved. His spontaneous reaction immediately made the atmosphere among ARMY even more emotional. Jimin, seemingly aware that Jungkook had immediately noticed him, then turned toward Jungkook from across the stage. The two briefly exchanged glances before Jimin gave him a small smile, as if silently saying that he was okay. Jungkook responded with a faint smile and a small nod. The brief interaction without a single word felt particularly powerful because it showed how instinctively Jungkook reacted to Jimin's condition even while he was in the middle of a busy soundcheck. The moment then became one of the warmest clips from Day 1 soundcheck in Toronto. For ARMY watching either in person or through the cameras, it was not merely the love gestures that touched their hearts. but the way Jungkook instinctively checked on Jimin after seeing him nearly lose his balance. The scene revealed Jungkook's simple yet seemingly sincere attentiveness, while Jimin's smile helped restore the warmth to the stage. After making sure that Jimin was truly alright, Jungkook returned to his position, but his eyes still occasionally drifted toward Jimin. As though he had not completely relaxed yet, Jungkook appeared to watch Jimin's movements from a distance, occasionally smiling whenever he saw Jimin joking around with ARMY. The camera captured those expressions once again, making fans even more convinced that Jungkook's earlier concern was not simply a coincidence. Jimin then seemed to intentionally return that attention by raising both hands and forming a heart gesture from the far end of the stage. As soon as Jungkook noticed, he broke into a wide smile and returned the gesture. The two could be seen sending love back and forth from opposite sides of the stage, while ARMY's screams grew even louder. The camera moved from Jimin to Jungkook and back again, as if unwilling to miss even a second of the simple interaction. For ARMY, the series of moments became one of the most touching parts of Day 1 Soundcheck in Toronto. It began with Jungkook instinctively searching for Jimin, followed by his sudden concern when he saw Jimin nearly lose his balance, and then his relieved smile and return of the love gesture once everything was fine. No grand words were spoken, yet the small acts of concern and exchanged glances between them made the atmosphere inside the stadium feel considerably warmer. Jimin, seemingly becoming even more aware of Jungkook's attention, then deliberately walked slowly toward the edge of the stage. When he arrived, he stopped and looked directly toward where Jungkook was standing. With a small smile, Jimin raised both hands and formed a clearly visible heart gesture from a distance. Jungkook, realizing what Jimin was doing, immediately returned the same loving gesture, causing the soundcheck area to erupt with ARMY's cheers. The camera then shifted from Jimin to Jungkook and back to Jimin again, seemingly determined to capture the simple communication taking place between the two sides of the stage. Jungkook was even seen laughing shyly and briefly lowering his head when he realized the camera was zooming in on him. His reaction only made ARMY even more excited, while Jimin appeared to smile with satisfaction from afar, as if he knew that his small gesture had managed to make Jungkook shy. ARMY's screams grew even louder when the two exchanged love gestures for a second time. Some fans could even be seen raising their hands to form hearts while cheering along, creating a sea of hands and lights around the stage. The moment was simple, but the warmth of Jimin and Jungkook's gazes, smiles, and spontaneous reactions turned Day 1 Soundcheck in Toronto into one of the most heartwarming moments for the fans in attendance. After exchanging several love gestures from opposite ends of the stage, Jimin finally decided to walk toward Jungkook. His steps appeared casual, but the smile on his face immediately made ARMY realize that he was deliberately approaching Jungkook. From where he was standing, Jungkook seemed to wait with a smile, occasionally glancing toward Jimin as if making sure that Jimin was really coming closer. As the distance between them grew smaller, ARMY's cheers echoed even more loudly throughout the soundcheck area. However, amid the deafening noise from the fans, Jimin and Jungkook suddenly stopped and looked at each other for several seconds. There were no exaggerated gestures and no clearly audible words, only a brief exchange of glances captured by the camera that instantly made the atmosphere feel much more emotional. The camera then zoomed in on their expressions. Jungkook appeared to smile faintly, while Jimin responded with a small smile before briefly lowering his head. The moment felt like a conversation without words, as though the two already understood what the other wanted to communicate simply through their eyes. ARMY watching the moment up close became even more hysterical, while the cameraman appeared to deliberately hold the frame so the interaction would not be missed. A few seconds later, Jungkook laughed softly again, and Jimin smiled along, allowing the emotional tension to melt into a warmer atmosphere. They then returned to following the soundcheck, but the brief exchange of glances had already become one of the moments receiving the most attention. For ARMY, Jimin's journey from the far end of the stage until he finally stood close to Jungkook felt like the perfect conclusion to a series of moments in which the two seemed to keep looking for each other, making Day 1 Soundcheck in Toronto even more memorable. After the warm interaction came to an end, Jimin slowly walked back toward his side of the stage to continue the soundcheck. However, the camera did not immediately follow Jimin's movement. Instead, the frame remained on Jungkook standing in his place, with his gaze continuing to follow Jimin for several seconds as he walked away. Jungkook then gave a faint smile before turning back toward ARMY, a simple expression that somehow made fans even more emotional. The moment became the strongest closing scene of their entire interaction. The camera eventually moved away, But those few lingering seconds of Jungkook looking toward Jimin had already been captured, and quickly became a topic of discussion among ARMY. There was no audible conversation and no explanation, only a brief gaze that left a lasting impression, leaving fans wondering about the meaning behind Jungkook's attention toward Jimin throughout day one soundcheck in Toronto.